Okay, as promised, we have Courtney Burnett, speech language therapist, assist, speaker, author, consultant here in Arizona. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Well, let's get down to business.
Okay.
You are not just a professional in healthcare services for therapeutic intervention for anyone with a disability and speech, but you're also a mom.
Yes.
Tell us about your wonderful family.
All right. Well, I've been married for almost 20 years to my husband, Craig. We're celebrating our 20th anniversary here in April. My oldest daughter, Hannah, has cerebral palsy, and we have also our daughter, Lily, and our son, Evan. So we have 3 awesome kids, and we live here in Arizona. We love going outdoors. We love doing things as a family and just finding new ways to make things accessible that people may have thought were inaccessible.
And we met, you're going to love this. So the school that my son goes to is here in Queen Creek, and Courtney put her card in for my son. So he gets in the car, he gives me the card, and I'm thinking, how did they know?
So a little background on that. I see him, I see another student at the school. I come in there to do his speech therapy, and I see a new face. And I'm like, oh my gosh, does this child have a communication device? And I just immediately want to jump in, and they just said, well, you know, they're new to the area. I don't know if they know about the services. So I said, you know what, I'm going to give you my card, and you give it to mom, and if she needs help with anything, just let me know, because more than anything, I just want to help families not be stuck in struggle and in unknown. And when you're new to an area, there's so much that you don't know how all the systems work.
Yeah, yeah. And things change.
Yes.
Because we used to live in Arizona, and we returned after 10 years after being in another state, Texas, that had us on a waiting list. That's another story.
So many states have waiting lists that are completely outrageous. They're so long, and they're constantly changing the requirements for the waiting list. So you may have been coming to the top of the waiting list, and all of a sudden they boom, and now you're back at the bottom. I know several parents who have moved out of state have had the same issue.
Yes, yeah. So you're moving for work or a variety of other reasons, and then you have to just navigate through that. You were just at Congress.
Yes, here in Arizona, in the United States, in our state, Arizona, at the local government, trying to advocate for a bill that would provide universal changing places in publicly funded buildings. So we're really asking a pretty simple ask that newly constructed or renovated buildings would provide at least one universal changing place for people like my daughter who can't use the traditional bathroom, and so there's no place to change her. So many families like myself are changing their kids on park benches, the backs of minivans, and even dirty bathroom floors. So we are down there educating, I like to call it, because so many people who don't live in our world are so unaware of what we go through on a daily basis. And so it was educating them on the need and then asking them to be a part of the solution.
So what happened?
Well, as of right now, I don't know if everybody is as up to speed on how everything works, but in our Congress, you go to a committee, and it has to get put on a committee agenda, and once it's on the agenda, you can have a hearing. And we had that about 3 weeks ago, and many families from across our state, some driving upwards of 3 hours, came to testify, to hear, to share their stories. And it was voted on 9-0, unanimous, bipartisan support to go on. Yeah, it's huge.
That's huge.
So, and then it had to go to the Rules Committee, and the Rules Committee is supposed to be a very small step in the process where they make sure that the bill you created is constitutional. However, the chairwoman or man can decide what gets put on the agenda or not put on the agenda. And Representative Kern in District 20 here in Arizona has decided that he doesn't like mandates, so he's not putting it on the agenda. So he's putting his opinion of why something should or should not be put on an agenda, making it his personal opinion rather than hearing the constituents and families. We had easily 50 plus people at our rally that came talking about the need yesterday. And when we were at our committee, we had at least 30 families that came to hear their voices heard. And I thought what was cool about it is so many families that came don't even need the service for their kids, but when they heard that my daughter was being changed on a dirty bathroom floor, a place they wouldn't even put their purse, they were outraged that that's the only option for her.
I mean, they're making provisions for dads in the men's room.
Yeah.
So,
and really, a really simple way to look at this, in my opinion, is many companies are putting in family-style bathrooms.
Yeah.
And they're big, and there is enough room. And so I just put this on my Instagram account this morning.
Oh.
It's a picture of a tent.
What's your Instagram account?
It's Courtney Burnett Advocate.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
check her out, everyone.
Yeah, and it's a picture of a tent. And one of the families told me that they pop up a tent at rest areas in order to change their adult male.
You've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, they pop a tent because these two, you know, when you're thinking about this, you're taking a grown man into a woman's restroom to lay them down, to change them. Nobody's going to understand that, and they're going to be like, what's going on here? So some families are resorting to having a small pop-up tent that they pop up to change their loved one who can't use the toilet, you know. So there's stalls, but if you are not able to take care of your needs that way,
it's not enough.
It's not enough.
It's not enough.
So my Instagram post was, if we take a family style bathroom, we take away the baby changing table, we lower it, and we put in a table that can hold a higher weight, we can now service the babies and any individuals needing additional help.
You know, that is a wonderful proposal. I hope everyone checks it out.
Yeah.
I read, I don't know, I have to pass this article to you. It had individuals with special needs, if they needed a transplant, a kidney, that they were not necessarily allowed to go on the list.
Are you serious?
I'm going to pass the article to you. We'll give it the smell test and fact check it, but.
Yeah. Well, I think it really comes down to the perception, and we're working so hard. There's so many great campaigns and ads going out right now that are saying, be a part of the inclusion revolution, realizing that people with different needs and different abilities can hold jobs, that they can be valuable and they can be an asset. And when we take away the giving them a job because you're trying to be nice, or it's kind of like a simple job that they think they can do, and not really looking at, wow, this person has really good strengths in the ability to organize and be able to clean, and they could do this. And there's a place here in Arizona, I think it's in Chandler. I get Chandler and Gilbert messed up sometimes, so don't get mad at me. But it's called Not Your Typical Deli, and they take and a good majority of their employees have different intellectual needs, and they evaluate their strengths, and then they put them in jobs where they can shine. So one takes your money at the front, one's a waiter, some have different prep tasks in the cooking, and they're really showcasing how you can just evaluate someone's needs and find the perfect job. And she told me that those people are some of her best employees because they're so dedicated and they're so proud of their work that they show up and they just do an even better job than the average employee.
They do.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why is that so much therapeutic intervention has been put into place on scheduling, how to do your job coaching. So you have a skilled employee when you're hiring someone with special needs.
Yeah. And we need to. And when we're looking at that, that's our investment. When we're investing in these programs and we're investing in these kids, employers need to see the value of them in the workforce and how they can really add assets. And there was an article about that. I'll have to try to forward it to you. I can't remember who it was by, but he was basically trying to point out that when you hire and employ more people with different needs, the value of your business goes up and the dollar amount you bring in is actually raised.
Is that so?
And so I'll get that to you because it was pretty amazing.
Oh my goodness, we're going to do some parent sharing. Now let's talk about, she's my new best friend.
I know, it's kind of awesome.
Let's talk about the parent stress, because we know about the services. We know, which we're going to talk about more. We know how the special needs employed can make wonderful employees, but the person who is pushing this all along,
are the parents.
They're the parents.
Yep.
And sometimes we're just invisible.
Yep. And we often don't even want to bring our needs up because we're so focused on making sure that our kids have what they need, that they have the support they need. And caregiver burnout is a real thing, and it can lead to and manifest in many different ways, even health issues, physical reactions to stress that we're under, causing other things to pop up. And I learned that the hard way when my daughter was around 9 years old. I just, she was born, and I kind of hit the ground running with, what does she need? How can I support her?
Hypervigilance.
Yes.
Are you a hypervigilant parent? Are you a hypervigilant parent? Are you doing everything? Talk to us about what that looks like.
And I had my blinders on. I just was like, you know what? I need to do Hannah's home program. I need to take her to therapy. I need to be doing this. And I was a working mom outside the home, so I also felt this mom guilt. And I've talked to my husband about it, and there is no dad guilt that I have been able to have somebody confirm. So far, it's a mom issue. And he's like, no, I know I'm rocking it. So he doesn't feel that guilt. And I felt that pull between being a good speech therapist, being a good mom, showing up, doing all these things. I didn't feel like I could put myself on the list, that I was already gone doing these other things. So I couldn't.
So what would you neglect?
I neglected my health. I neglected my friends. I neglected any hobbies I had. And I became a shell of the person I used to be. I'm very bubbly and happy and outgoing, and I was negative Nancy, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Because when you're facing insurance battles, inclusion,
a lot of no's,
you get a little bit bitter. And so I had to find a new way to accept where I was at and what my life looked like, with being able to still be happy in my new life. It looked different, but I had to come to terms with it. I was always going to have insurance struggles. They are not going to just willingly hand over some of the things that my daughter needs. And so I had to find a way to balance that and still be happy.
So you have a business and you have contracted with the state.
Yes.
And I have to say, if you want to get really good service, is when you hire the parent of a child with special needs. We are detailed. We are well trained.
It's true.
And we mean it. If you give us a task to do, it is going to be done thoroughly, because we have been there. We've been in the trenches.
Yeah, and we can see more than one solution to solve a problem. We're used to hearing the word no, or we don't do that, or that's not how we do it here. And sometimes it's just a matter of helping people see that just because this isn't always what you've always done doesn't mean it can't be done differently and even better. And so really giving them the resources, and word choices is huge, because when I have parents understand their word choices and the power of how they're phrasing it, it can really change an outcome.
Yeah, because it can really, like you said, you can turn into negative Nancy, and then you're looking at the bad things about it. But when you walk in, because, if you have a child with special needs, you're only really thinking about what my child's strengths are. So calling me up and telling me, oh, well, he didn't do X, Y, and Z, which I found in a typical setting.
Yeah, and the other thing is
who wants that call?
Yeah, and we tend to focus on too often on what they can't do instead of what they can, and then building off what they can do to create those bridges to where there still needs in development.
Yes. And you as a therapist, you're going to be very good at that, because immediately when she called me, she said, I noticed that he has a lot of echolalia, so an augmented device would be great, which he had one. He had the Dynavox years ago. Yeah,
and now there's so many updates. You would be like, it'll be so much more user-friendly than the big old Dynavox. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
it was a huge. Yeah. Like, how do I even convince him to work it, to carry it around? Yeah. So then I immediately pulled out the iPad to upload the PEC system. back in it.
Yeah.
And I think my son did okay. And then after the hurricane in Texas, I watched a lot of regression, and I didn't expect it to hit his speech. But that's another topic.
Well, I think you bring up an important thing, though. Here,
Yeah.
you have a child who experienced the same things that you experienced, but yet does not have the ability to fully express it and work through those emotions the way trauma affects us all.
Yeah.
And you guys had, I wasn't even there, just watching it on TV. It was very traumatic, and having that stress and then not being able to talk about it and really, get it off his chest and have himself be comforted. It's our kids who have delays in expressive language, or like my daughter, extremely nonverbal. She can't express those same fears. I've seen that so much with her when she has to be put under. She wakes up so terrified, and it's because she can't even ask where I'm at. What happened? Like we all do when we get put under anesthesia, and for a moment you don't know where you're at, but that's 10 times scarier for her because she can't even say, I don't know where I'm at.
Yes.
And so treating, again, having those issues, so he's shutting down in this way because he almost didn't have any other way to, express himself.
And this kind of leads us back to one thing that we were discussing before camera is, although this is the autism recovery page, we want to make sure that we bridge the gap of all disabilities, because the treatment, the therapeutic intervention is cross the categories.
Yep.
Everyone is going to need, in a lot of cases, speech therapy. They're going to need occupational therapy, and they're going to need PT at some point.
Yeah, so many kids and so many different diagnoses do utilize similar treatment plans and similar therapies, and really realizing and getting outside. Sometimes I'm guilty of this because my daughter has cerebral palsy, so I'm usually looking at CP issues, and I know my acronyms from my world, and then there's more acronyms. And I went to a training and said acronyms keep us out, because acronyms are just another way of confusion being added instead of really stating what they are, to help even parents understand. So sometimes we throw around these acronyms and nobody's really understanding what the acronyms are. So it's keeping us out of the know versus saying it and bringing it down to real life language so that parents can understand what we're talking about.
Well, that's why a lot of the parents actually go into the special needs careers at some point. I mean, my son is 19 years old, and I would never forget the first IEP that they were throwing out all of these acronyms, and I'm thinking, wait a minute now, I'm not nuts here.
Right.
You're talking a different language altogether.
Yeah.
And just to exclude the parents. So one of the things that I requested when I go into the IEP meeting was I did my research on who was going to be in the IEP.
Right.
And I don't let them call me mom.
You have them call you by your name.
You call me by my name. Yeah. I am a person. You are a person. Don't say, and the mom said. What is that? Mrs. Douglas, Mrs. Stevens, Mrs.
Yeah.
I have to remember yours. Where the parent, the point of this is that you as a parent, you're not invisible. You're not just pushing a cart along. And so we want to have more of these webinars and podcasts.
Yeah.
To make sure that the parent takes care of themselves. We know that there are going to be financial issues. We know that there are going to be insurance issues. But we want to give you resources and training on how to overcome it.
Exactly, because when you understand the system and how it works and how you can get the insiders know, I always thought, well, how does this parent have this, or how did they get that? It was really about never giving up, and they utilized some other parents' knowledge that had dropped them a little nugget, and then they picked it up and then they ran with it, and they go, okay, now I figured it out. Like how to write an appeals letter. And I was trying to get a medical bed for my daughter, and I took on one of the biggest insurance companies in the country and here in Arizona.
And you're paying your insurance fees.
Yeah.
It's not like we're saying, give me this and you didn't work for it. We're saying, hey, this is covered. We're paying our co-pays, we're paying our premiums. we're doing the things. It's not a handout. It's by no stretch of the imagination charity.
Yeah, and it's durable medical equipment. And so often it's equipment, depending on your child's needs, it's critical for them to be able to get their basic care met and for them to be able to leave the house. So if they can't have a wheelchair and then they can't leave the house.
Do you know that there are parents out here that don't or won't fight? And I try and stay away from the word fight because I want them to take that stress out of it. They will not challenge the no's because they have it in their head that it's a handout.
Well, they have it's a handout, or the fact that, well, they said I can't have it, that must be the answer. So the insurance company says I can't have it, so that must be correct. I can't have it. But so often, one big tip I say is ask for the credentials of the person making that decision. Oh. Because so often the people who are making these decisions are actually not the correct people who have the knowledge to know what your child really needs or how to operate these things. And so they're making these decisions based off of just some system they're using in the insurance company rather than having a doctor or a specialist who is evaluating that file to determine if the child does need that too.
Is it medically necessary? And I don't want to talk to the admin about this. Sorry, I know you have a purpose, but right now, telling me no is not on your pay scale.
And really documenting who you're talking to, what they said, and the date and time. And that is basically through the denial letter. And so when I teach advocacy with my clients, a lot of it is for special ed or IEPs, but my point to them is once you learn the strategy of how to be an effective advocate, you can really take that into multiple levels in your life. Because once I understood how to work to get Hannah what she needed within the schools, I could also use that same data and that same approach for the insurance companies. Is just what I did when we took them on about her medical equipment.
It's case management.
Yeah.
You're teaching the parents how to case manage.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. And so often in our world, we are more than one thing. We're a mom, we're a nurse, we're a case manager. And there's just so much to learn. There's such a big learning curve the way that things are currently designed right now. So there's just a lot to know. And then let's not forget about the emotional component of this being your child. So not only is it hard to do, it's emotionally exhausting when you're fighting for your baby, not just somebody. It's your child.
Makes you a little ferocious. I see you guys out there. I'm one of them. Wrestle you down to the ground. He wants the advice, Okay, so we want to put a lot of fun into it, and I know you guys watching are probably laughing at some of this and then getting a lot of golden nuggets because you're laughing with that nervousness of, yeah, how did they know? Me too. That's what's going on. So I want you to rewind it, see what you can find in these videos. You're going to have more. How can we get in contact with Courtney?
Well, my website is CourtneyJBurnett.com, so they can check me out there.
And we're going to leave a link.
We're going to leave a link. That's always best.
Yeah.
I'm on Facebook and Instagram, as we talked about, the same handle, Courtney Burnett Advocate. And those are the best ways to get in touch with me.
Okay, so we're going to leave a link to get in contact with her. She's available to do special needs advocacy across the gamut, not just autism, because you're on an autism page. Our takeaways today is how to navigate some strategies with the insurance companies, why self-care is important, what the financial responsibilities may look like, and most importantly, to take care of yourself. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, any comments below? Talk to you soon. This is Hesma Stevens.